Thank you very much, dear Excellencies, members of the Bundestag, former members of the Bundestag, also representatives of Bayer, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to welcome you tonight to our discussion, Berlin to Belém, what's at stake for the global climate debate and for global climate action. My name is Gordon Ripinski. I'm the editor for Politico here in Germany, very happy to have this kick-off debate here for this important topic. The COP30 climate talks kick off in just a couple of weeks, and tonight it's actually our goal to shine a light on the important aspects of this debate. We all know that not only in Germany but also in other places we have a big focus on crisis, on economic reforms, and sometimes it feels like the climate debate falls down a little bit, and we are convinced that this is a very important debate and that it's time to start it now. I think it's symbolic and important that it takes place in Belém in Brazil, and I'm also very pleased to welcome Mr. Felipe Carvalho Raposo. He's representing the Brazilian embassy in Berlin. I don't know where he's sitting, but I'm convinced he's here. Welcome to this event. When it comes to Germany specifically, we will also and obviously have a big focus on the question what our role in Germany is, what the role of German policies can be. We are all aware that also the debate in Germany has changed quite a lot, but we're equally convinced that the German role is a crucial role when it comes to climate policies and to the path to Berlin. And that is not only for climate topics itself, it's about energy transition, sustainable mobility, about agri-food systems, and much beyond. So we're happy to discuss all that also tonight. Before we start, I would like to thank our partners for tonight's event. That's Bayer. We would really like to thank the colleagues, some of them I see here, to make this, to thank very much that you made this event possible, and we're really looking forward to the debates we're having here. Before, yes, please, absolutely. And to lead the executive conversation, please help me to welcome on stage Cristina Gonzalez, my colleague from Politico. I was about to say in Brussels, I don't even know where you are. You're flying around the world organizing all events, and you're one of the most important colleagues that not only I have, but we in Brussels and in Washington. Welcome, Cristina Gonzalez, on stage.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much, Gordon. I appreciate that introduction very much. As Gordon says, I'm Cristina Gonzalez. I'm the executive producer of Politico's events for Europe, and it is a true pleasure to be here with you all tonight. And I would like to, again, thank Bayer for supporting us with this program this evening, and I'm really looking forward to diving into the discussion in just a moment. As Gordon set out with this conversation, the climate concerns continue, and the geopolitical landscape continues to shift. And so what we're really looking to do tonight is to dive into what's at stake this year in COP in Brazil. And so in order to do that, I am very pleased to welcome Matthias Berninger, Bayer's Executive Vice President and Head of Public Affairs for Sustainability and Safety. Please help me welcome Matthias to the stage. Welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Matthias, since 2019, has led Bayer's global public affairs practice and has been driving the company's sustainability strategy worldwide. And I'm told by Matthias himself that we're allowed to have some fun on this conversation. So
if you have both fun, it's going to be awesome. If only you have fun, I'm not sure.
Okay, very good. So fun for all here for our conversation this evening. So there is, in all seriousness, a lot to discuss. So let's kick off with something quite serious, which is that 2024 was the hottest year on record. The Paris Agreement's 1.5 Celsius degree limit has been breached. And so many are truly calling for climate action now. And Matthias, what I'd like to kick off with is to understand why, in your view, COP30 in Brazil is so incredibly important.
Yeah, when you look at last year, we have a lot of touch points with farmers around the world, basically large and small farmers alike, are facing a very extreme climate, a climate that none of their predecessors has ever faced. So we have been already moving out of our climate comfort zone. For example, wheat farmers in France had the lowest yield since 1980, and that in the world of farming is like a huge backlash last year, which is also why, irrespective of the political debate about the climate, people who are actually growing our food are very worried. We do opinion polls with them, we have lots of conversations. And for Bayer, it's also a reason why we believe doubling down on climate is important, especially at a time where the debate is a bit more on the back burner. Other topics seem to be more important. When you are growing food, there is hardly a topic more important than the rate of change in our global climate. Now, Brazil was home not of COP1, that was actually Berlin, but of COP0 in 1992. A lot has happened since then, and in this case, not football, but the COP is coming home. And I know in my conversations with Andre Dolago, who has the honor to lead the negotiations for the host country, and many on his team, how excited the country is to host the world, and how excited they are to host it not in one of the big cities, but in a place that is ground zero for climate, right in the tropical forests. And therefore, the road to Belém is not an easy one, but it's one the host country is very excited. And I hope that we Europeans, and especially also here in Germany, that we are equally excited about making this COP a success.
And Bayer will actually be at in Belém with your Casa Bayer, so there'll be a lot of discussions happening on the ground there as well. So looking forward to continuing those conversations into the coming weeks. But as you mentioned there, climate change isn't happening necessarily in a vacuum, right? There's a lot of geopolitical shifts that are happening, and to a degree maybe taking attention or shifting attention. So we see now, as a result of that, organizations are really reconsidering how they're tackling climate initiatives and the role they play in climate solutions as a result of that. So if I can ask you pretty bluntly, where does Bayer stand on that?
Yeah, I think that's a question that is being asked in many boardrooms at the moment. We had this conversation beginning of November, after the first November in the first Tuesday in November, which is election day in the United States. And the question was, are we still in or not? The reason why we are still in, I already talked about it, our customer base will suffer greatly, and then our business will suffer greatly. If we or many other companies moved away from a agenda designed to protect the climate. And what I see in companies, I see 4 types of reaction. So some are basically looking at the climate debate, and it's now a headwind debate, and they're just turning around and are completely in the opposite side. When you are cycling with tailwinds is much better, and you can see some oil companies, many other companies now cycling in the opposite direction. The climate doesn't care, though, whether they cycle in one or the other direction. Then there is a group of companies that simply gives up. You see a lot of stagnation in that space. You're not making progress if you give up. The third group is a group that pushes the pause button. So they have a café au lait and a chocolate croissant. Many cyclists like to do that from time to time, and you don't see them out there. But Bayer is not the only company, but there's a very large group of companies who basically say, okay, we have a headwind situation. We need to work differently on the topic. We need to help each other, but we need to advance the climate agenda. And if you look back to Paris, Paris was possible because key industry players supported the climate agenda. And I think that is what is also necessary in Belém.
You mentioned early on in your answer there the US elections in last November. So I will mention Donald Trump specifically in this case. So maybe just between us, we can forget them for a second. We don't need them. We need you. We love you, but just between us. Was there any pushback internally or from investors following the election of Donald Trump? And maybe more specifically for Bayer, how you're approaching sustainability targets in this new environment, especially now that we're seeing such pushback against ESG, for example, and all of these ambitions?
Yeah, I think what's crucial also in the current environment, there is this nice English word of politics, and then there is the even nicer English word of policy. And in Germany, we really don't have this differentiation. What we all need to avoid is to get too entangled in the politics. I see the United States, it's one of the largest emitters in the world. It's certainly the most powerful economy in the world. We need to work hard to get the United States, including President Trump, back into the fold. When you're a reinsurance company, you know how much you suffer from climate change. The agricultural sector, arguably very important as a political base for the President of the United States, very important. The security community also seeing that problem, very important. We won't solve the global problem by finger pointing, which is why we talk to key stakeholders, whether they are willing or allowed to use the word climate change or not, about the ensuing problems, of which there are many in our area. Also in the health space, if you think about how extreme heat is affecting vulnerable communities, it's basically the same communities that were affected by COVID, plus young children are suffering from extreme heat. So once you talk about that, I think you move forward, and we just need to avoid the blunt politics as much as possible. At the same time, the United States is a very important, but not the only country in the world, and Bayer is operating globally. So we of course look at how other countries, electrification in China, for example, are driving a climate agenda. And when you look at the whole world, it looks very different. Investors, some of them have a croissant and take a pause and enjoy cafe latte or whatever investors enjoy. But many are continuing to invest.
Okay.
So the invisible hand of the market is still more green than we all would believe it is.
On that potentially positive note, let's say, when we talk about ambitious targets, sometimes that can be a bit esoteric. And so I'd love for you to help me make it a bit more concrete. If you can give one or two, three, you mentioned 4 headwinds before. That was impressive. I can't count that far in terms of things to remember. But a few concrete examples of what Bayer is doing when it comes to tackling climate change.
It's very difficult to go to a business meeting or to go to a board of management and talk about temperature and what you do to reduce temperatures. Because frankly speaking, companies, but also governments don't really have a thermostat for the globe. We really don't know how the temperature will react. We know that weather is getting angrier and angrier, but that's something we can't control. What we can control is our emissions. And we know, by the way, since way before the first meeting in Rio, that we have to reduce our emissions. For me, staying in line with the Paris Agreement means 3 things. First of all, as a company, you need to grow carbon neutral. Unfortunately, Bayer is able to tackle that at the moment. We would like to see more growth, but no matter how big the growth is, you have to grow carbon neutral. The second thing is you have to cut your emission in half every decade. And the decade we are talking about now, it's 2025. We are halfway through. So it's going to be quite a task to cut your emissions in half until 2030. We are on track to do that, mainly because we are fully betting on carbon neutral electricity, on renewable energy. We have contracted around the world, including our biggest contract in the United States, to build new capacities for renewable energy. It's the most competitive thing to do. The third thing is you will have remaining emissions, and those you have to offset, which means you need to have credible ways to take carbon that you can't avoid to blow into the atmosphere out of the atmosphere. If everybody did that, we would not talk about the 1.5 degree kind of limit to be broken through, but we would have a very different conversation. It's incredibly hard to do, but it's possible if you religiously follow those three things: grow carbon neutral, cut your emissions in half, find a credible way to offset the rest. That's the path we are on. It's working. It's going to be harder in the next decade, which is why we need a lot of cheap electricity. The goal of the German government should be to grow the electricity consumption. We should all agree on that. All of us should be able to enjoy access to cheap, green-produced electricity. But the first step is to grow the electricity consumption, like what happens in China in ways that some of us can't even imagine. The more access we have to green electrons, the easier it is. But then we have also a benefit. To decarbonize agriculture, we need to innovate in agriculture, which is products we want to sell. So that will be our business benefit, that we help other sectors to decarbonize as well.
You know, doing hard things, they're hard for a reason, right? And oftentimes we need others to join in forces in order to help us achieve doing those difficult things, and to see to light some certain initiatives in order to drive meaningful change. So I've noticed that Bayer has recently created a sustainability council in this case as one element to help support and get outside partnership in order to see some of these things come to light. Can you share more details about what Sustainability Council is, how that works, how it supports Bayer in your efforts that you've just mentioned? And you've also brought new people onto that board as well. So if you can give us a sense of what the aim is there.
Yeah, to stay in the cycling metaphor, some of you who watch Tour de France or other cycling races have heard about the sticky bottle, which is when you go up the hill and you go to your team car, you grab a bottle and you hold onto it for a bit longer, and the team car gives you a bit of a push to get easier up the hill. So certainly the Sustainability Council has helped us to get the necessary snacks and supplies to stay on course. That is something that was last year and the year before incredibly helpful. It was not an easy conversation. The other thing is it helps us to not turn into an NGO. People who work in sustainability are super passionate, but the council has been very clear that we also need to be unapologetic about making money. And that the solution to the problem of the passion is that we identify business models that allow us to make money while having a positive impact on the climate, be it in mitigation, reducing emissions, be it in adaptation, helping farmers to deal with angry weather. That is sort of the conversation we continuously have. But most importantly, the council gave us cover when the winds were turning from tail to headwind.
Okay. I see that not only are we short on time, we're out of time, but seeing that as I'm the boss, I'm going to keep us going for one more question. So, as Gordon said, in all sincerity, I would like to return back to COP and close out our conversation, just really looking ahead to November in terms of what your expectations are, if we can expect any meaningful decisions or concrete actions to come out of it.
We have seen quite a few global environmentally related negotiations recently where the consensus that we even achieved in Baku was a hard-won victory to achieve that consensus, was no longer possible. So I think that the Brazilians would be managing a major success, something I believe almost out of reach, if they achieved consensus. I'm not too optimistic about that, which is why I think in the COP process we need to go back to the ingredients that helped us to become more successful in climate negotiations, after an epic failure in Copenhagen. That was a COP where President Obama was the president. Everybody was super optimistic, but many countries said, no, we are not having it this way anymore, which is why the most important thing is that we get a significant commitment from countries and from the business community who are willing to make a difference. I don't think that it will be a consensus, but it will be a COP where leaders lead by example. Maybe we are as good as that as we were in Paris, then we would get the whole world behind it. But I think we shouldn't expect that from the Brazilian hosts. Brazil as a country has dramatically changed since 1992. And that's the other important thing, to really understand what our host country stands for today. It's the largest exporter of food, for example. In 1992, Brazil imported food to the tune of $1.5 billion. Now they are exporting $150 billion worth of food. Can this COP help Brazil to stay a leader in that space without further encroaching on biodiversity, protecting the very rainforest where the COP is hosted? It's going to be a big topic. But for that, the world also needs to understand the kind of Brazil we are traveling to, a country that has been an incredible innovator on the one hand, is a leader globally in the climate debate, but is also a country where the success is one that needs to be good for the environment, but at the same time also needs to work for the business community there. And our job is it to bring one ingredient, and that is innovations that allow us to do both, to be economically successful, but turn around a trend where agriculture is a major contributor to climate change. That's what we want to do in partnership with the Brazilians and with many others, most importantly with hopefully many in the business community.
So the keyword innovation.
Innovation is one of the keywords. And the other keyword for me is try to avoid politics, focus on the policy. In this case, there hasn't been a single COP after which the emission load in the atmosphere wasn't higher than in the COP before. We need to turn this around, and I would say we need to somehow turn this around quickly. Otherwise, it will be even impossible for innovators to help farmers and others to adapt to the problems ensuing.
Thank you so much, Matthias,
You're
for your
welcome.
insightful thoughts. I really appreciate it. I'm sure that the audience did too. And so please help me in thanking Matthias and Bayer for this discussion and making it possible today. I'm going to welcome, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to welcome Gordon Rapinski back to the stage just after we do a quick stage change, so stay with us. Thank you all so much.
That's amazing. So we can even take notes. I love it. Okay, thank you so much, Matthias. Thank you, Christina. I think we will continue straight away with our panel. And I would like to ask the panelists on stage. That's Lisa Badum, member of the Greens in the German Parliament. Welcome, Lisa Badum. Yeah. And Jochen Flassbart, who's the State Secretary in the Federal Ministry of Environment, and I think it's fair to say one of the most experienced negotiators in that field. Please come here. And Philipp Rösler, who is the CEO of Concessor AG, former German Vice Chancellor, Minister of Economics, and brings in the economic perspective. Welcome. Jochen Flassbart, we're in the middle of a debate whether Germany will support a new European goal for climate reduction. And we've seen your minister in quite a heated discussion. What's your thought where this debate will end? Where will Germany stand?
Well, thanks a lot for having me here. And I think the updated or the new NDCs that are the climate targets of countries, or in the case of Europe, of the European Union, the Paris Agreement says that we have to, every 5 years, upgrade our national targets, or in this case European targets, and that is what it is about at the moment. And I'm just coming from the African Climate Summit. People around the world are looking at us, and we are not there yet to support the proposal of the Commission, 90% cut of European greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. We are working hard. And it is not something nice to have. It's essential. And that is why Minister Carsten Schneider made it very clear there's no way we have to support the Commission. And by the way, Matthias, this has to be done by politics. I agree on many things, but not that politics is something bad. And I hope Lisa and maybe also the former Vice Chancellor will agree. Without politics, engaged politics in a democracy, we will not reach it.
Lisa Badum, I mean, you're now opposition. You for a couple of years, 3.5, you were with Robert Habeck representing the Vice Chancellor, representing the Minister for Climate. Are you disappointed where the debate is 4 years after that? After that started?
First of all, good evening from my side, and thanks Politico for the invitation and that you are focusing on this topic, because it's 2 months before COP, and usually the media discussion is starting shortly before COP, and it's really important that we talk about this week, because it's a crucial week for the next COP. And Jochen Flassbart just mentioned it, but I would not really support his framing. Because the German government already supported the proposal of the Commission for to decrease 90% of the CO2 emissions till 2040. So it says in the coalition treaty that it's very important for the coalition. The Chancellor highlighted it in his speeches, and we know that Germany and France are basically the motor of Europe, and it's really crucial that Europe is delivering an ambitious NDC to this COP. So this week everything could fall apart, and that's what I'm worried about, actually. And it's true that the Ministry for Environment and Climate, he's supporting the proposal, but he's really the only one. So the Chancellery is working against this proposal. There has been like kind of a deal with Macron to not support the European Commission, to not support Ursula von der Leyen from the CDU. And just to add one thing, and also we asked today the Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, because we were really interested as opposition what they would say, and they couldn't say out loud, we will support this target.
But Lisa
So
Badum, I have to bring it.
We
have a historic moment
it's just
now.
One minister supporting it.
We have a historic moment now before I bring in Philipp Rösler. Jochen Flassbart can defend Friedrich Merz now.
Well, but I also can be very foggy when it is time to be foggy.
So, okay, be foggy, but comment on what Lisa Badum said, which was, you're the only one basically that fights for that goal.
No, I mean, we have a clear, as Lisa said, we have a clear agreement inside our coalition contract that reflects what the Commission wanted to have. So basically what the proposal of the Commission went into our, by miracle, into our governmental contract. And now the proposal reflects everything Germany wants. And by the way, we have, apart from Denmark, the most ambitious climate target. The last 20 years will be the more difficult ones, because we are coming to the end. The low-hanging fruits are away, and therefore it is in the interests of guys like Matthias, the companies behind him, that we get the others in the European Union on the level of ambition we have in our country. And whoever advocates for something else attacks the interests of the German industry.
I want to bring in Philipp Rösler for the business perspective. You know, I just came back today from the International Automobile Fair in Munich, where the debate is slightly different than here on stage. And I wonder how a former Vice Chancellor, head of the Liberal Party, and now businessman thinks about the goals that need to be achieved or maybe need to be reformed in a way, because that's the debate that's currently happening in Munich.
I mean, the good news is that I'm not anymore an active politician, particularly not a party politician. I haven't known that there's even some good stuff for me, but seriously, I think I can say that Belém must be a success, for sure. And there's only one opportunity and one chance to make it to a success if Germany takes over a leading role. And this is only possible because everyone in Germany, not to talk about the political parties, but at least the business community, stands behind the government. There might be some nuances in the direction, in the numbers, whatever. But again, we have a totally different environment in comparison to the COP before. So the US is pulling out, is quite aggressive against the idea of COP 30 and everything behind this. And so someone has to take over the leadership. And this is only possible if everyone is close together. And it's not the time to talk about, again, different political directions. Now it's time to stand together and to make it a success, because if not Germany and Europe takes over leadership, no one else will do it, or someone who is not directly in our interest.
I wonder if you could say that to Oliver Zipse or Ola Källenius, and they would probably look at you and say, is this still Philipp Rösler?
Yeah, and I would say, is this still Oliver Zipse? Because let's pull out the quotes. I'm only an observer. But not even a year ago, they've been all in favor of climate protection. They, could say, "Oh, we don't want to we don't want to have any more piston engines. We would like to electricity." And now they totally changed because they have the mindset, they have the idea that the public opinion has changed. The truth is, public opinion in the US has changed for sure. The pressure is released if they have seen it as such. But the need for the right decision, for the right positioning is still the same. And this is not a question of the political opinion or a trend. It's a question of right or wrong. And in this case, I would say, look to the numbers. And again, you can only come to good climate, and you can see the negative consequences already across the world. I have seen it, and I can take them with me to see it. But I think it's not needed. And again, so they have to stand together, and happy to talk to them and say, look, guys, it's now time to act.
Happy to witness that conversation.
May I add something?
It's historic, right? So if you would like to vote for me, please, but it's now too
late. It's great to hear political opinion now, because I didn't witness the government then, so great. And I think, as I'm not worrying that I'm not really worried that Bayer will turn an NGO soon. So I think you should pursue the climate track where you're on. Because in reality, the industry is not very loud at the moment. The Green Deal is at risk. And that means that we will lose even more technology to China. I mean, it's not just batteries, but it's also storage technology, it's wind turbine technology. So China has really the majority on parts of these technologies. And at the moment, we are risking the transformation and everything we worked so hard for, and the companies worked so hard for, because they already made a lot of investments in green technology. So I'm wondering, where's the outcry of German industry when Chancellor Merz is selling them out, basically, and when Mr. Söder, which I only want to mention once, because I'm from Bavaria, and it's enough speaking about him. He wants to delay the 2035 target for combustion cars and everything. So I'm wondering, where's the industry now?
Look, but if I may take over the moderation for just 1 second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
of course.
That was a second.
Your turn.
I mean, it's always an easy point to make a joke about Markus Söder, but the fact is that the vibe is not far away from what he's saying, wherever you are, not only in Munich, but also when it comes to government. I mean, obviously, one of the focuses is to, sort of restart the German industry. And the matter of fact is that the reason why we are so on track so far is also because the industry wasn't very strong recently. So the question is, how can you make sure that the vibe changes a little bit back? And then maybe a follow-up would be, what is your ultimate goal for Belém?
So, I mean, the reality is that European Union is on track for the Green Deal. So we can reach the 2030 target, which you cannot be said about every target. So this is a huge success story, but we're not really telling it. And it's sad that we lost also the wind industry from Germany, and now Katharina Reiche is working on destroying not the solar industry, because it's not existing in Germany anymore, but really the renewables industry department again. So maybe it would be a start to give a signal and to tell people the truth that renewables are cheap, far more cheaper than LNG gas. So I went to Wilhelmshaven a few days ago, and it's 3 times more expensive LNG gas than pipeline gas, and a lot more expensive than renewables. And I don't really see why she's talking so much about gas at the moment, fossil gas. So it would be a start to talk about our independence, our freedom. We want to be free from Trump. So I think every German citizen, at least every German, a majority, would agree to that. But we're really doing the opposite. So this European spirit of freedom and democracy, I mean, the US is still a democracy, but it's really has autocratic, you see autocratic things there. So this would be a start. About Belém, what we are expecting, first of all, it's a huge opportunity because finally COP takes place in a democracy. To highlight that again, we had Azerbaijan, we had the Emirates, I mean, great presidency, but still not a democracy. And the COP is taking place in the Amazon, the green lung of the world, and really a symbol for what could happen if we do not act. And it's the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement. And the Brazilian presidency is really ambitious. They want a good outcome. And I think what we need to see is that states are really highlighting their NDCs with a phasing out fossil fuels, with a pathway how they will phasing out, because that's what we agreed on in Dubai, and we wanted to triple the renewables. So we need this to see in the national climate plans. Also, we need to have the thing of the climate finances. Jochen Flassbart is also an expert on this, but also on the complexity. And we agreed on having more climate finance in the next years for the global south, but we don't have a plan yet. And I think one start for us, because 1.3 trillion is not there in a month.
Let's come to
one
the
start
finance in a
for
minute.
Germany to end this would be if we would keep our promise in climate finance, but we're doing the opposite. So we are paying 1 billion euros less than we are supposed to pay.
But let's
do
look at
the opposite and then take the others with us.
Let's look at Belém in total before we come more to the German role. Jochen Flassbart, there are people who would say, let's prevent a big, collapse of the whole system when we are in Belém, rather than setting high goals that possibly will not be achieved. What would be your approach towards Belém?
Well, I'm wondering a little bit what the discussion is about, because actually this COP in Belém, from the topics that there are on the agenda there, is not completely complicated. We have to look at the NDCs, and many countries are on their way to deliver. As I said, I was in Ethiopia right now, Kenya, South Africa, all are on their way. And now Europe has to deliver. We have to see that there's a strong link between the EU decision on our NDC and what China is doing. We could make really something big out of it. I hope the EU Commission will do that. but the precondition for that is, of course, that we do have a reliable, as Philip said, NDC also for the EU. And the second point is that we have to bring the adaptation agenda forward. For most of, I mean, I've been for 3.5 years in development, and for most of our partner countries, adaptation to climate change is absolutely essential. And I think we should be able to deliver on that as well. And then there are other issues that are not on the agenda, but that are floating around. The climate finance, as Lisa said, is one of them. I would say it would be a bit unfair to look from Baku to Belém and ask the old donor countries and the incoming donor countries like the Gulf states and China, what have you done during the last 12 months? I mean, whoever, and that is my outreach to our partner countries, very frankly, whoever wants to kill the COP in Belém, it's very easy to do. You don't have to have intellectual talent and also not rhetoric talent. You just look at the figures. Let's say, let's simply take UK halvening their ODA and US out. Germany not as bad with the figures as our partner countries, but also not increasing. I think we will deliver on what we promised, what Chancellor Merkel and later on Chancellor Scholz said, the 6 billion. So we might be the only ones to deliver. But the trend overall is going in a different direction because the world has changed. We are all suffering from the aggression from Putin against Ukraine. We have to increase our military expenditures. So things have changed, and it is easy to finger point at us. We are, in a way, easy victims. But I see a growing understanding if we come up with a credible roadmap, and that is what the Azeris and the Brazilians are working on, how to reach the 1.3 trillion, including 300 billion public money, which is not undoable until 2035, then we can convince our partners. But only if in this roadmap of the enhanced financing, a substantial increase specifically for adaptation is reflected. Then we can make the deal. And as has been said by many, the Brazilians are the most experienced and skilled diplomats. Their foreign service is excellent. They know how to do it. They have an excellent incoming co-president with André Dolago. He knows everything, how to make the game. He was a negotiator himself. So I'm quite confident. And the last point, maybe there is an excellent proposal by the Brazilians, personally promoted by President Lula, and that is to create a specific facility to support, to finance the standing forests. Because many people in the world, many countries in the world, coming from countries where they still have a good forest coverage, take Gabon or others in the Congo Basin, they say, well, those countries who have clear-cut their countries, they have via Article 6, these are the flexible instruments, they have a pipeline to money, but we took care about our forests and we don't get anything. And therefore, this facility that is using public money blended with private finance is something very, very substantial. It will help the tropical forests, and it will be a success for President Lula, and of course everybody knows they have elections next year. It is also in our interest to allow President Lula to have a success also with a domestic view.
Philipp Rösler, let's look at, sort of the tension that we have in the question whether businesses or public should do the job, to make it very, very simple. When it comes to financing, what would be your point? What can the contribution of the private sector be?
Yeah, first of all, I think the entire climate issue can only be addressed in a public-private effort. And it was never a 50-50 game. Sometimes the policymakers have been in the lead when it comes to the rules, procedures, and to the agreements. Sometimes the private sector is in the lead when it comes to fulfilling. Certainly the funding, when it comes to the big numbers, it's more on the state level, some specific states or groups. However, I think the private sector has to play a role even on that level. But we should not overstretch the topic because, as already mentioned in the first talk we had, I mean, we should not forget the business has a pure job to do. They have to make money, they have to be profitable. But our job is to bring in, on top of the question of being efficient, productive, and profitable, also the topic of sustainability. That is what business can do and what can deliver. And if they promise it, they can live up to. Whereas if they promise too much, I think they will disappoint the people. But again, it's always a public-private effort. And in today's times, I would say, first, the private sector has to support the politicians who try to negotiate. Second, they have to deliver and make their homework. What at least Bayer did, as we have heard, they have not changed their policy even after the election, whereas some others, you mentioned some, have apparently changed their policy after the last election. And sustainability in its understanding and even name does not mean that you change it every year. And that means you have to stick to what you once decided. And if you really have a sound and serious approach by integrating sustainability in your business model, then nothing has to change now. But apparently some has seen it more as a PR activity or alibi, whatever. But I'm proud that there are some role models around who still are reliable and supporting the policymaker when it comes to the necessary negotiations and decisions. I mean, he will come to an end in the negotiations, we all know it, not before 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It's always the game. Because, you know, the weakest part of a human body is around 3 to 4 o'clock. So, I mean, this is what the trick of Angela Merkel, right? I mean, that's why all these European negotiations have ended 3 o'clock in the morning. Most of the accidents happens there. So, in this case, not. So, but again, so that means we really need the support. And it's only a couple of weeks to go. And there's not the time to discuss details. But again, the private sector has to play a role. And now it's a time, the pivotal moment, where we can see who is really sound and serious on this track, or who is not super reliable when it comes to sustainability.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Apart from Bayer, of course, on the climate track, but which other industries or companies would you see at the moment which are role models for the transformation?
If you see the sectors in Germany, and you know even better when it comes to the detailed numbers, but I think many sectors have achieved already their numbers when it comes to reduction. There is still some missing, for example, the transport sector, as far as I understand, if I'm not mistaken. But that means the others are fully on track. And believe me, it's not only possible if you have one company is sticking to the goal, sticking to the agreements, sticking to their own commitments, only if we all do it. I think we have in Germany around 3.2 million companies, many of them very small. However, I think this is a joint effort. And again, it's only possible if each and everyone is doing this. And I mentioned Bayer only, certainly I'm biased, as a role model, but others are still on this track, whereas others try to change and get out of it.
So they need the regulation to stay like reliable.
This is maybe, if again, I'm not a party politician, but regulation is maybe not the first word.
Or,
because
sorry, legislation?
No, because if you have a regulation, and as soon as the policymakers change, the regulation is falling apart, then immediately the people get out. If you don't have a real conviction on their end, a real understanding that this is needed as part of their interest and their business model, then you have not a sustainable change. That means, look, if Bayer would have a regulation that you shouldn't integrate, and then Trump come into power and then say, oh, it's not needed anymore, it's something what we just can observe in the US, then they would get rid of. And many companies try to get rid of. So if you integrate it and you really have it seriously into your business model, then there is no need for any regulation. And even if the regulation will change, at least the political trend has changed, you still can stick on your track. But this is only possible if you're convicted and if you have a real business model, because again, we are not a charity, not any company is a charity or an NGO, but if it makes sense, then as you can see many companies doing it, and not because of having a political trend, but because of really convicted.
I know Jochen Plasbart has an appointment after this panel, so we're going sort of in the final curve. But I would like to ask you before we finish this panel, when we think about climate protection, climate policy, all of us think about industry and car and traffic and all that first. But I mean, it's a lot more than that. It's a lot. It's agriculture. It's health. It's digitalization. All these aspects you have to think holistically. What would you think? In which fields are we progressing in a way that is promising, and in what fields we are still lacking what we need to do?
Well, I think the biggest success story is what is internationally called the Energiewende. After kindergarten, another German word enters the English language.
Zeitenwende is also one.
Yeah, but not as prominent as Energiewende, I would say.
Bratwurst is also.
And
Angst.
Yeah.
And I think we made a good job in Germany. Some 10 years ago, I was on a panel of the New York Times in New York, and some of the experts there, scientists, were laughing about me that we want to be 100% go for 100% renewables. And one said, with the radiation of Alaska, ho ho ho. So we are doing it. And also the last one of the success stories or the positive developments of the last government. Some rare examples to pick, but one is that we made progress on the renewables. And if I may combine it, what Lisa and Philip discussed, I would say without a full involvement of the private sector, we will not reach our climate targets. At the end, the green economy has to be the new normal. And the best example for that, how to do this transformation in a very difficult environment, is South Africa. We supported South Africa to change their energy regulation and doing what we had done in Europe some 15, 20 years ago. So full non-discriminatory access to the grid. Whoever has a solar panel there or a windmill can now induce the electricity to the grid. And that overnight made every wind park, every solar park a business model. You don't need any public cent for that. And this regulation was done by Ramaphosa, although it is attacking the monopoly of Eskom, the energy provider, and the coal industry, and the ANC is very dependent on the coal workers. I'm a social democrat, I know what I'm talking about. And he brought it through the parliament 2 weeks prior to the elections. National elections. No one would have done it in our country, to be honest. And we need to applaud these leaders. And then I think we will create an environment, an atmosphere where regulation, wise regulation, and private sector can work together. Of course, as you said, there are more difficult industries, also those who are in a hard competition internationally, the steel industry, with an oversupply from China anyway. And then if you put a cost block via our CO2 price on the production, then this is not competitive. So that was the reason why we created the CBAM. But this is, of course, something where, again, smart regulation is needed and very sensitive international negotiations to make our partners understand that this is not to exclude their products from our markets, but that is to promote climate neutral production.
So I totally agree on that. And of course, it was also a success of Robert Habeck promoting the Energiewende in the last years, together with other parties and some of the other parties in our government, surely Social Democrats. But let's not lose the focus of this event. We need to get Belém to be a success. And we just talked about the key role of the European Union. It's always a coalition of European Union with Latin American states, vulnerable states, in Dubai also with the Emirates and other states. So they can reach a consensus in the end and can reach it against Russia and others who are trying to water it down. And this is all at risk this week. So as far as I is informed, if no wonder is happening, Germany is supporting or is undecided or is not supporting the Commission proposal for the climate target, which means it can be totally, it can be killed in the European Council. So this is our challenge this week. And so far I didn't hear how can this wonder happen that German government is not killing all we're talking about at the moment.
At the end, everything will be good, or it's not the end.
That's
This
almost.
is, this is worrying.
How can I continue the
This
discussion
is great, but
here? Yeah. That's really difficult. I take this as a last word, not without mentioning that I think there were some milder tones in the press conferences today on that, and I would be curious to see how the German government doesn't stand by what they have written down in the coalition treaty. I think that makes the thing a little difficult. I don't want to say we finish here. I think this was certainly a starting point for this debate, not only for the debate tonight, but also in general. I want to quote your idea that I think it's a good moment to start the debate, not only 2 days before, but maybe rather a few weeks before that, because the topic is too important, and even if it's not in the focus, I hope we did exchange some good ideas that maybe also inspire for further debate. I do also, to the very end, see 3 unexpected core qualifications here on the podium that I discovered tonight. First of all, I think Philipp Rösler, I want to see your conversation with Ola Kalenius and Oliver Zipse, and I want to witness that.
Invite them here on stage.
Lisa Badum.
I will be here.
Okay, great. Lisa Badum certainly qualified as a co-moderator for this evening. And Jochen Flassbart qualified for negotiations until and beyond 3 a.m. in the morning. Thank you so much, and let's have a good time. Okay. And I do believe we take a picture now, right? With all the participants, so also with you two, right? So let's be on stage for a second. Okay. Thank you very much. That was the panel, and we do have some drinks. We do thank all participants. We thank Bayer for making it possible, and for you to be our audience. So let's continue now here.